Hello, 5th graders, and happy Thursday. Today we have a chance to review for your Unit 3 test tomorrow. I know you're going to do a great job on this video and on your test, and so does Mr. Smiles. Let's dive right into our... Let's look at some subtracting fractions problems. First, let's read the word problem. Carrie bought a cake for her birthday. Her sister ate 1/2 of the cake, and Carrie ate 1/5 of the cake. How much more of the cake did Carrie's sister eat than Carrie? What operation do I need to use to solve this problem? I need to subtract. I'm finding a difference. I'm comparing. How much more? So I'm going to subtract 1/2 minus 1/5. Can I subtract those fractions like they are? No, I can't. They don't have the same denominator. So I need to make both of my fractions into equivalent fractions that have the same denominator. I can start by finding my least common denominator. Go ahead and list the multiples of 2 and 5 now to find your least common denominator. The least common denominator is 10, so I can convert both fractions to equivalent fractions with a denominator of 10. When I change 1/2 so that the denominator is 10, what do I multiply by? I multiply by 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times 5 is 5, so 1/2 is equal to 5/10. When I change 1/5 so that the denominator is 10, what do I multiply by? Well, 5 times 2 is 10, and 1 times 2 is 2. So now I can subtract my fractions. 5/10 minus 2/10. What's 5/10 minus 2/10? It's 3/10. Remember, when I subtract fractions, I subtract the numerators and the denominator stays the same. Now try another one. What's 7/8 minus 2/3? Remember, find the least common denominator, change into equivalent fractions, and then subtract. First, what's the least common denominator of 7/8 and 2/3? It's 24. So I need to change both fractions so that the denominator is 24. When I change 7/8 so that the denominator is 24, what's the numerator? 8 times 3 is 24. 7 times 3 is 21. So 7/8 is equal to 21 over 24. When I change 2/3 so that the denominator is 24, what's the new numerator? Well, 3 times 8 is 24, and 2 times 8 is 16. So 2/3 is equal to 16 over 24. What's 21 over 24 minus 16 over 24? It's 5 over 24. 21 minus 16 is 5, and the denominator stays the same. Now you try a couple of problems on your own. Find the difference between 5/7 and 1/4. Remember, find the difference means to subtract. Go ahead and find that difference on your paper now. The difference is 13 over 28. 5 over 7 is equal to 20 over 28, and 1/4 is equal to 7/28. When I subtract, I get 13/28. Try another. James had 3/4 of a pizza left after dinner. He ate another 1/5 of the pizza for lunch the next day. How much pizza did James have left after lunch? Well, what operation do I need to solve this problem? I need to subtract because I'm taking some more of the pizza away. I need to subtract 3/4 minus 1/5. Go ahead and do that on your paper now. The answer is 11/20. If you got the question wrong, pause the video and take a moment to check your work with mine. Let's move to skill 2. We've also talked about subtracting mixed numbers. Paula's bus ride to school is 8 4/5 miles. Luke's bus ride is 2 1/4 miles. How much longer is Paula's ride than Luke's? What operation do I need to solve this problem? I need to subtract. I'm comparing the bus rides. I'm finding a difference. So I'm going to subtract 8 4/5 minus 2 1/4. Let's write those numbers into a T-chart. Remember, I want to start by subtracting the fractions because those are my smallest unit. I can't subtract 4/5 minus 1/4. Go ahead and find the least common denominator of those two fractions now. The least common denominator is 20. Now I need to change both fractions so that they have a denominator of 20. When I change 4/5 so that the denominator is 20, what's my new fraction? Well, 5 times 4 is 20, and 4 times 4 is 16. 4/5 is equal to 16 over 20. When I change 1/4 so that the denominator is 20, what's my new fraction? Well, 4 times 5 is 20, and 1 times 5 is 5, so my fraction is 5 over 20. Now I can subtract. What's 16 twentieths minus 5 twentieths? It's 11 twentieths. That's a proper fraction, so I'm finished with my fractions. What's 8 minus 2? It's 6. So my answer is 6 and 11 twentieths. Now you try a problem. A tailor cut 6 and 11/12 inches off of a skirt and 4 3/4 inches off of a pair of pants. How many more inches did the tailor cut off the skirt than the pair of pants? Well, what operation do I need to use to solve this problem? I need to subtract. I'm finding a difference. So I'm going to write my numbers in my T-chart. 6 and 11/12 minus 4 3/4. Go ahead and subtract the fractions now. What's 11/12 minus 3/4? 11/12 minus 3/4 is 2/12. That answer is not quite finished. I need to simplify. What's the largest number that goes into both 2 and 12? It's 2. I can divide both by 2. When I divide 2 and 12 by 2, what's the simplified fraction? It's 1/6. So my fraction is 1/6. What's my whole number? What's 6 minus 4? It's 2. So my mixed number is 2 and 1/6. Now let's try another problem. What's 3 7/9 minus 2 1/2? Well, go ahead and solve that problem now. The correct answer is 1 5/18. The least common denominator is 18. 7 times 2 is 14. 1 times 9 is 9. When I subtract 14/18 minus 9/18, I get 5/18. 3 minus 2 is 1. We also talked about adding mixed numbers. Let's look at an example. Rita was making cookies. She put 3 1/4 cups of flour and 2 2/3 cups of sugar in a bowl. What was the total number of cups of ingredients she used? What operation do I need to use to solve this problem? I need to add. I'm finding a total. I'm combining ingredients. Go ahead and put your numbers into a T-chart. 3 1/4, 2 2/3. I can't add these fractions like they are, so I need to find the least common denominator. Go ahead and find the least common denominator for 1/4 and 2/3 now. The least common denominator is 12. So now I need to change each fraction into an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 12. What's 1/4 when written with a denominator of 12? Well, 4 times 3 is 12, and 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/4 is equal to 3/12. What's 2/3 when written with a denominator of 12? Well, 3 times 4 is 12, and 2 times 4 is 8. 2/3 is equal to 8/12. Now I can add. What's 3/12 plus 8/12? It's 11/12. What's 3 plus 2? It's 5. So the answer is 5 and 11/12. Let's look at another example. James jogged 3 3/5 laps around a track, then took a break. After his break, he jogged another 2 1/2 laps. How many laps did James jog in all? What type of problem is this? This is an addition problem because I'm combining the numbers of laps. So let's add 3 3/5 plus 2 1/2. I can't add these fractions like they are. What's the least common denominator for 3/5 and 1/2? Find that now. The least common denominator is 10. Now I need to change each fraction so that it has a denominator of 10. When I change 3/5 so that the denominator is 10, what's my new fraction? Well, 5 times 2 is 10, and 3 times 2 is 6. When I change 1/2 so that the denominator is 10, what's my new fraction? Well, 2 times 5 is 5, and 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10, and 1 times 5 is 5. Now I can add those fractions. What's 6/10 plus 5/10? It's 11/10. Here I have a problem. 11/10 is an improper fraction. I need to change it into a mixed number. When I change 11/10 into a mixed number, what operation do I need to use? I need to divide 11 divided by 10. When I do that, what is the mixed number that I create? Well, 10 goes into 11 one time with a remainder of 1. So the fraction I have left over is 1/10 with 1 whole that I can move to my whole number side. What's 3 plus 1 plus 2? It's 6. So my answer is 6 and 1/10. Don't forget to change any improper fractions into mixed numbers. Now you try one. What's 4 1/3 plus 3 4/5? Go ahead and draw that into your T-chart and solve now. The correct answer is 8 2/15. Check your work with mine. Now let's talk about a few review skills. In Unit 2, we talked about division with two-digit numbers. Let's practice some of that two-digit division. Let's look at a word problem. A tour group has $5,280 to buy train tickets. Each ticket costs $32. How many train tickets can the group buy? Well, this is a division problem because I'm splitting $5,280 into groups of $32. So write your division sentence with 5,280 inside and 32 outside. We talked about how listing the multiples of 32 could be very helpful. So on your paper, solve for the multiples of 32. Go ahead and write those multiples on your paper and then enter them on your computer. Now that I know my multiples, we can do our division problem. Let's think, where can we start dividing? We can start dividing in the hundreds place. How many times does 32 go into 52? It goes in one time. What's 1 times 32? It's 32. When I subtract 52 minus 32, how many do I have left over? I have 20. I can bring down my 8. Now I can divide in the next place. How many times does 32 go into 208? 32 goes into 208 6 times. What's 6 times 32? It's 192. Now I can subtract. What's 208 minus 192? Well, 8 minus 2 is 6. 10 minus 9 is 1. I can bring down my 0. How many times does 32 go into 160? 32 goes into 160 5 times. 5 times 32 is 160 with none left over. So the answer is 165 tickets. Now you try one. A bakery needs to arrange 8,911 cupcakes on trays for a party. If each tray can hold 19 cupcakes, how many trays will the bakery need? So we're going to divide 8,911 cupcakes into trays that each hold 19 cupcakes. Go ahead and start by listing the multiples of 19. Write those multiples on your paper, then enter them on your computer. Check your multiples with mine. Now that you have them, where should we start dividing? We should start dividing with 8900ths. Now you solve the problem. What's 8,911 divided by 19? The answer is 469. The bakery will need 469 trays. Now let's do another. A farmer needs to ship 5,360 pumpkins to a grocery store. He is packing the pumpkins into crates. If each crate can hold 16 pumpkins, how many crates will the farmer need? Go ahead and solve this division problem now. Make sure you list your multiples on your paper to help you out. The answer is 335. We also talked about adding and subtracting decimals in word problems. Let's try a few. Jerry bought 6 95/100 pounds of jelly beans at the candy store. 1 2/10 pounds were cherry flavored and the rest were lime flavored. How many pounds of jelly beans were lime flavored? Here, we're finding the difference. We're finding how many are left if we take 1 2/10 pounds out. So I need to subtract 6 95/100 minus 1 2/10. What's the most important thing to do when adding or subtracting decimals? I need to line up my decimal points. I can place a 0 after the 2 to make sure that my place values are lined up. Now I can subtract. What's 6 95/100 minus 1 20/100? Well, 5 minus 0 is 5, 9 minus 2 is 7, and 6 minus 1 is 5. So 5 75/100 pounds of jelly beans were lime flavored. Let's look at another example. Genesis was buying food for a party. She bought a 52 93/100 ounce bag of barbecue chips. She bought a 79 6/10 ounce bag of hot chips. How many ounces of chips did Genesis buy altogether? What operation do I need to use to solve this problem? I need to add because I'm putting the bags of chips together. Now, go ahead and add 52 93/100 plus 79 6/10. Enter your answer in the computer. Genesis bought 132 53/100 bags of chips. Let's look at another example. Tiana was doing research about the weather. She saw that Biloxi, Mississippi received 13 74/100 inches of rain last week. Jackson, Mississippi received 19 8/10 inches of rain last week. What is the difference between the amount of rain Jackson received and the amount of rain Biloxi received? What operation do I need to use to solve this problem? I need to subtract. I'm finding a difference. Go ahead and subtract 19 8/10 minus 13 74/100 now. The answer is 6 6/100 inches. You've done a great job on this video. Now it's time to go to IXL Practice L.20.